Now, if you're dealing with a narcissist, you may have learned all about the different phases of a narcissistic relationship, including love bombing, devaluing, and discarding. And if you want to know more about that, you can definitely check out my videos on those. But basically, when you're dealing with a narcissist, you're dealing with a person who has no sense of self. They're really just almost like a shell. And a lot of what they do is wrapped around trying to cover up the fact that they have no sense of self. And I'm not saying that they don't have inherent value as human beings, as souls on this planet. I'm saying that they don't feel like they do. And so because of that, they treat other people badly. They live in a world of scarcity. Like if they don't get before anybody else, that they're not going to have it. They're in a world of survival all the time. So how that manifests itself is how they treat other people is just horribly, because they just feel like if they reach out at all, if they give at all, then they won't get that. Somehow their own whole world will not be right, that they'll start to collapse. And so how that collapse starts to happen for them is when they start to see things unraveling. So narcissists live on something called narcissistic supply. And if you haven't checked out my series, the Narcissism 101 series, check that out, because in that series, I go through all of the basic terminology, the kind of basic information that you need to understand how narcissists work. And while I am an attorney and my role here is to help you negotiate with these people and also create strategy and leverage and all of that, if you don't understand the basics of a narcissistic personality, you'll never be able to understand how to do those things. So understanding the basic terminology and the basic understanding of their brain is absolutely essential. So talking about how they act in a time of collapse is going to be important, but leading up to what happened, how does that collapse happen, is also going to be really, really important. So when you're dealing with a narcissist, you're dealing with a person who spends their entire lives trying to cover up things, trying to put on this show that is basically trying to be a masquerade so that people don't see what's really going on underneath that shell. And, you know, and they're also constantly trying to grab everything they possibly can to make themselves feel better, look better, feel more important, look more superior to others. And that's why they spend most of their day going around treating people badly, judging people, putting people down. And the only reason why they're ever nice to somebody is because they're constantly trying to manipulate people into getting under their web of control, because then that makes them feel better. I mean, I once heard that narcissists are like rats in a maze. They're just after that one thing, that one piece of cheese, that one, you know, that's the only thing that they're looking for. And the way I look at it is, you know, narcissistic supply is the only thing that drives them, and they get supply from money and adulation and respect and all of those kinds of things. But most of the time they go around getting narcissistic supply from the darker underbelly of narcissistic supply, which is treating people poorly, intimidation tactics, sometimes even violence, you know, control tactics, gaslighting, triangulation, flying monkeys, smear campaigns, all of those sorts of things. And so when it's this constant house of cards that they are keeping constructed. And it's actually a very fragile house of cards. Keeping that house of cards intact is like so much work. That's basically all that they spend their time doing, trying to be sure that they're never exposed, that no one will ever see that side of them that they don't want people to see. And if this all sounds super familiar to you so far, give me a totally in the comments. Okay, so now the house of cards is coming apart. It's all falling down around them. What does that mean for a narcissist? It means that they've been exposed in some way. It means that somebody has shown them up, stripped away whatever leverage they thought they had. It means that something has unraveled for them and they're actually being exposed. They lose their ability to control themselves. And I've really seen this when people are negotiating with narcissists. And this is what I teach people. It's, about the strategy and the leverage in my SLAY program. And I always tell people that they're the worst before they're actually ready to give up, because this is when they realize that that mask has been taken off, that filter is gone. So they start to lose control. You start to see them doing things that seem erratic or impulsive. They start to make mistakes. They start to fire off emails or text messages or things that are actually going to end up being really great trial exhibits against them. And that's when you start to know that they're starting to lose control. They're starting to be nervous about what's going to happen. The second thing that might happen is they actually have a complete meltdown. I mean, maybe you start seeing crying, crazy behavior, bizarre behavior, where they don't seem like themselves. They normally seem completely in control, and now they're desperate, they're begging, they're acting like they'll do anything. So that's the second thing that you might see. The third thing that you might see is hoovering. Now is when they're going to start to come back and go, oh, wait a minute, we can always work this out. You know that we always could, something like that. And if you want to know more about what hoovering is, check out my video on hoovering. But that's the next thing that you might see is like, okay, none of these things, crying didn't work, coming apart at the seams, all of those things where they just completely have lost control. So let me try something else. You start to see them acting very, very desperately. And the last thing is that they start to panic, and you start to see fear and horror in their eyes. And if you want to know more about what makes a narcissist panic, check out my video on how to make a narcissist panic. But the basic thing you need to understand is that when you trigger that narcissistic injury, that narcissistic rage comes flying out. And when that happens, it's because they're starting to lose control. They're starting to collapse. And so they start acting very, very bizarrely during a collapse. Now, one question that sets up a narcissist collapse. What could that possibly be? One question. What happens when you're dealing with narcissists in the first place? Remember that narcissists rely on control and manipulation. They're very fear-based individuals, scarcity-based individuals, and that's why they want total control over you. People who are authentically in power of themselves, they have complete self-worth. They don't need to have complete control. They're not fear-based individuals. So there is one question that narcissists fear more than anything, because it exposes them. It exposes their true nature, and it can potentially lead to their entire downfall. It's the one question that they don't want to hear. You have to understand the inner workings of what's happening inside a narcissist to understand why this question is so effective. And you have to understand the strategies for dealing with them, which is what my whole SLAY methodology, my SLAY method is all about, which stands for strategy, leverage, anticipate, and you. I have a whole training program all about that. SLAY training for people who are trying to actually deal and negotiate with narcissists. I also have a certification program for coaches and professionals on it. So what is narcissism? Narcissist is, these are people who feel no inner sense of value. They feel completely empty inside. And so they get all of their sense of value from external sources, from feeling powerful in the world, how they look to the world, and also from controlling and manipulating people. And yeah, I mean, there's a range of it. It's a spectrum from healthy self-confidence to pathological narcissism. There actually is such a thing as healthy narcissism, but there's manipulative tactics to it as well. Gaslighting, projection, devaluation, and hoovering tactics. Those are all tactics that narcissists use. And, what I call coal level supply. So there's what I call diamond level supply, which is how they look to the world, impressive friends, having a great job. All of those things are what I call the window dressing of narcissistic supply. But then there's what I call the coal level supply, which is controlling you, debasing people, devaluing people, that sort of thing. The thing is that how they look to the world, they will protect and defend that at any cost. They will let go of controlling you, manipulating you if that is threatened, if how they look is threatened. That is so fragile. Their self-image is so fragile. They will maintain that at any cost, but they use people to bolster their self-image. So what's that one question that exposes a narcissist? That one question is the question that challenges their false persona. And that question is, can you acknowledge any mistakes or take responsibility for your actions? Ask them that question. And the problem is that they struggle with admitting any fault or accepting any responsibility for their behavior. Asking this question highlights their avoidance of accountability and exposes their manipulative tendencies. If you guys have seen this, I would love for you to comment below in the comments to say, I've seen it in the comments, because I'm sure that you've seen it in dealing with them in the past. So asking this question highlights their avoidance of accountability and exposes their manipulative tendencies, because they will struggle very difficultly with this. It disrupts their thinking. It takes them off their guard and exposes their inability to genuinely connect with people or genuinely empathizes with people. They will go ballistic. They'll go crazy. They'll have self-defense. You'll see them have trouble with this. They will struggle with this. They have fear. They'll know that their vulnerabilities will start to be exposed. This is why the narcissist both hates you and, hates themselves. So that's why it seems like a narcissist hates you. I have a whole video on this, why the narcissist hates you, which you can definitely check out. That's why they go to threaten you and they start to collapse. And, what it looks like when a narcissist starts to collapse ain't pretty. So, and I have a whole video on that as well. And this is what happens when they start to collapse. They start to blame shift. They start to, love bomb again. A lot of things can happen when the meltdown starts to come on. They're going to desperately try to maintain control or regain control if they think that their control is slipping away. During this time, you're going to want to practice self-care, practice having those strong boundaries in place, practice making sure that your interactions with them are as minimal as possible. Have you ever met somebody, they started off to be the most charming, charismatic person you've ever met in your life, then they turned out to be your worst nightmare, and then when you go to negotiate with them, they're a living hell? Well, I developed something called the SLAY method of negotiating with narcissists, and it has helped tens of thousands of people in more than 150 countries win, go from feeling drained and defeated to getting the outcomes they want. And the reason why it works is because I spent more than 20 years studying narcissism as a trial attorney, and now I'm here to help you win too, and also take your suffering and turn it into your superpower. Take your pain and turn it into profit, peace, and purpose as a highly specialized, high conflict negotiation coach. If you want to learn how to do it, then just go to RebeccaZung.com/apply, and I will show you how. I'm going to tell you in this video that there's one question that you can ask them that sets up their collapse. All right. So before we dive in, I want to hear from you in the comments below. Tell me about a time that you felt like you had the upper hand in a negotiation or a communication with the narcissist. All right. Because your stories, they inspire others, they empower others. So don't hesitate to share, all right? Because it does help. And when you're dealing with a narcissist, it's important to understand their mindset. They thrive on power, they thrive on attention, they thrive on control. And taking that into account, the one question that sets up a narcissist collapse is this: how does that benefit you? How does that benefit you? Now, let me explain. All right. Now, many of you know me from my best-selling book, Slay the Bully, How to Negotiate with a Narcissist and Win. And if you read that book, you know that knowledge is power. You know that it's important to feel strong. You know that a narcissist is way more afraid of you inherently than you are of them. And trust me, by the end of this video, you're going to be armed with this powerful tool. You're going to be armed with feeling like you are so powerful, whether it's in a conversation, whether it's in negotiations. And if you haven't subscribed already, make sure you do that now. Subscribe, hit that notification bell, because you want to feel empowered. You want to feel strong. You want to know how to navigate these challenging circumstances when you're dealing with narcissists, whether it's your family, whether it's a professional situation. And I dealt with it in my law practice. I deal with it now when I'm helping people around the world. And it is so game-changing when you kind of turn the tables on narcissists and they're kind of exposed. When you say, how does that benefit you? How does that benefit you? Because they get sort of defensive when you ask them this question, right? So imagine you're in a situation where that narcissist is making these outrageous demands. And by asking, how does that benefit you? You're essentially asking them to reveal their motives, right? I mean, they may be taken aback. They might stumble. They get defensive. And in that moment, you've shifted this balance of power. So consider a scenario where a narcissist is attempting to gaslight you or manipulating you. When you say, how does this benefit you? It immediately shines a light on their tactics, causing them to backtrack. So, for example, in a professional negotiation, when they push for an unreasonable term or a condition, simply pose the question, how does that benefit you? Not only does it force them to think, I'm going to have to explain my demands here. It also positions you as someone who is thinking critically about the negotiations and the situation. So have you ever used this before? Or can you ever think can you think of a situation where this would help you, or where this would be a game changer for you? Drop it in the comments below. I'd love to know. I want to see this community here come together. I want to see you guys come together. I want to see you guys sharing insights. I want to see you guys sharing strategies. I want to see you guys supporting each other. All right. And for those of you who need phrases, who want phrases for helping
to write emails, to write text messages, for communications. I have phrases for disarming narcissists, and you can get those at disarmthenarc.com, and they will help you become so much more powerful and just crafting the right emails and text messages. Sometimes if you're in tricky situations and you're thinking, I just need the right thing to say, it will help you. So disarmthenarc.com. So, just if you're thinking about, hey, I'm in a situation where I just want to flip the tables on this. And I've actually done this. I've actually completely flipped the tables on somebody. I actually had a situation one time where somebody was coaching me, and I didn't really feel like I was getting the value out of the coaching after a few months. And I was paying this person monthly. And the person would meet with me, and then the person was supposed to be doing other things for me. And what I ended up doing, because I had signed a 1-year contract with this person to pay them monthly. And what I ended up doing to get out of the contract was I literally listed out all the things that this person had done for me in the couple of months. And then I listed out what I had paid the person for business coaching. And I met with them on Zoom. And during the Zoom call, I then presented to them, here is what I have paid you. And here are all of the things that you have done for me. So now let me flip this deal on you. I'm coming to you and saying to you, I'm pitching you. You are now going to hire me as a coach. This is the offer. Pay me what I've paid you. Here is what you're going to get out of the deal. Here's how it's going to benefit you. What do you say? Would you hire me? And the person was so taken aback. And the person started stammering and, oh, well, you don't know about the future value and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, yeah, don't give me that. Don't give me that. Because they knew that this was not going to work. How does this benefit you, right? The only thing that this person was getting is they were getting benefited. I wasn't getting benefited. So, how does this benefit you?
What I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a series of questions because I want to make sure that you are so ready to deal with a narcissist in a variety of situations. And by the way, you better be careful when you're dealing with a narcissist and take good care, because you will want to make sure you protect yourself. And if you're in any sort of danger, make sure that you call the police or call the domestic violence hotline if you do need to, because I don't want to put you in any sort of danger. You know that I am an attorney. And so I do want to make sure before we delve into this that, we do understand what we're dealing with. All right. So before we dive into the types of questions, I want you to understand the narcissistic mind. So that narcissists thrive on control. They thrive on being admired. They need that narcissistic supply, right? They have a very, very fragile ego, and questioning their authority can be the thing that causes that narcissistic collapse, right? Pulling that rug out from under them or exposing them in some way. So how can you use questions to cause that collapse in some way? So understand it's always going to be about supply. Everything is about supply for them. They're like rats in a maze. It's that one thing that motivates them. It's that one thing that incentivizes them. And when you are negotiating with them, which is what I teach people how to do through my SLAY programs, and SLAY, by the way, is an acronym, which is strategy, leverage, anticipate, and focus on you, which, is what I teach people how to do I teach people how to build leverage through looking at supply, because that is the one thing that motivates them and incentivizes them. Now, there are different types of supply. It's diamond level supply, which is how they look to the world. And then there's what I call coal level supply, which is manipulating people, controlling people, degrading people. So understanding how to trigger a narcissistic collapse is going to be tied up in that supply situation, right? So if you haven't, by the way, subscribed to this channel, I invite you to do that now. Subscribe, hit that notification bell, because I do teach and give free information, resources, tips, tricks every single day. So subscribe, hit that notification bell, because I make sure that I'm turning you all into savvy negotiators out there. All right. And if you are in the process of negotiating with a narcissist, grab my free Crush My Negotiation prep worksheet, winmynegotiation.com, because that will also help you. And it's a free ebook. It's 15 pages, and it will also help you as well, because it's literally helped thousands and thousands of people now, and it'll help you beat that narcissist on the other side. All right. So understanding that narcissistic mind is so, so important, in how you can use questions strategically to start to pull that rug out from underneath them. All right. So consider the reflective type of question, So a reflective type of question might be something like pondering their actions without directly challenging them, but it kind of gets their juices flowing, right? So how do you think your decisions are? Here's an example. How do you think your decisions will be affecting those around you? It's non-confrontational, but powerful, right? Because they have to start to think about that, right? They're going to start to think about the other people around them and how they might be exposed, because they don't want to look bad to their, what I call diamond level supply, okay? Which is the people that they, value the most. The next one is the accountability question. This subtly places accountability on them. Remember, when it comes to accountability, the thing they want to do, project and deflect. It's never their fault. It's never their problem. It's never, they always want to say it's your fault. It's somebody else's fault. I couldn't get to it because, someone else was supposed to do something first, because this person didn't do what they were supposed to do, because it wasn't my job, because, it's always something else, right? So, but you can say, what steps are you taking to address the concerns raised? What steps are you taking to handle it? How are you going to rectify the situation? It's about holding them accountable without directly accusing. So how is it going to be handled? How do you suggest we, fix the problem for the future? How do you suggest that we make everybody more accountable? So that you can make sure that there's transparency in the situation for next time. Get it in writing. Exposure, right? You want to expose them. Squeeze them in. You start to squeeze them in. The more that you can start to squeeze them in so that there's transparency and potential exposure, the more you start to set up their collapse. The next one is the empathy sets of questions. Empathy questions can be game changers. All right. Can you help me understand what led you to feel this way? This not only disarms them, but sets them up for, okay, let's have a genuine conversation. What led you to feel this way? What led you to feel that concern? Because that makes them feel very uncomfortable. This is where you're going to really start to get, the project and deflect. Why are you bringing that up now? Why are we having this conversation? This is not a good time. Now you interrupted me. Now you're going to get the, they're not going to want to have this whole empathy conversation. So, and then the next one is the hypothetical question. It allows you to address situations indirectly. Well, if you were in their shoes, how would you want to be treated? And it invites reflection without confrontation. So, it tries to get them to put them in their shoes. So, but they don't know, they're so, it almost is like they can't do it. They literally can't do it. I mean, that's when you're going to get them to, they don't have time for this right now. I would love to have this conversation, but I can't right now. I mean, that's really the worst one for them. But the way you really can start to box them in is through those accountability sorts of things, where you can really start to hold them accountable, the empathy questions, the reflective questions, those sets of questions where you can really start to box them in, especially if you're in a work situation. That's what I've used it before, and they just get mad. Because once you start to box them in, that's when they're just they end up leaving, basically. But I would love to know which of these questioning techniques resonates with you the most. I've seen them work, by the way. They work like a charm, This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. Let's be real. Therapy can feel like a really big investment, but your mental health is just as important as your physical health. Traditional in-person therapy can cost $100 to $250 per session, but with BetterHelp, you can save up to 50% per session on average. You pay a flat weekly fee, which means more peace of mind for less. Therapy should feel accessible, not like a luxury. BetterHelp gives you that, all from the comfort from your home. And with over 30,000 therapists to choose from and 5 million people served globally, this is the world's largest online therapy platform, and you can switch therapists at any time. Your well-being is worth it. Visit betterhelp.com/negotiate today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/negotiate. Toxic people aren't going away anytime soon. When you can really become that most powerful version of yourself, it really doesn't matter when they're around. That's really when you become free. They're like a gnat flying around. That's when life becomes different for you. So how do you handle toxic people? Well, number one, you have to create boundaries, right? Step one, don't run. But number one is create boundaries. Create super strict boundaries, because they've been conditioning you from the beginning. So when they've been conditioning you from the beginning, you've got to start creating these super strict boundaries so that you can start to heal. Your brain is like foggy, and it's been turned into some kind of mush sometimes. And in order for you to start to heal, you've got to start creating boundaries that are really, really strict, because they're going to look for ways in. They're going to look for ways to have other avenues to get in. And so, I often say, have one form of communication, one form of input, and I always say, have it be a way that you can actually document a date and timestamp, a way that they can't manipulate. Text messages can be manipulated. Conversations that are, oral, like talking, they can't be documented. So email is a perfect way to be documented because it really can't be manipulated the same way that text messages can be manipulated. So one way of handling a toxic person is to create boundaries, create super strict boundaries. All right. So that's number one. Number two is to pick your battles. They give you all kinds of battles, and you want to engage in every single one of those battles. Don't get involved in every single one. You want to end up defending yourself. You do want to defend yourself. Don't try to defend yourself. When you defend yourself, you actually end up giving them that power. When you do that, you're basically saying there's an issue. So don't do that. Pick your battles. You don't have to engage in every single one that they throw out there for you, right? Sometimes there are battles that you want to engage in, sometimes there are not. And that actually brings me to number 3 as far as a way to handle a toxic person. And that is, don't take the bait. You don't have to take every single piece of bait that they throw out there either, because they will try to engage and get you to take bait. And part of the reason they do that, not just for narcissistic supply, which they do that too, because narcissists enjoy the process of triggering you. They enjoy the process of getting under your skin. They enjoy the process of watching you become emotional. They enjoy the process of manipulating you. They, of course, get off on that. They get a high from that. They get narcissistic supply from that. It's a form of enjoyment for them. Regular reasonable people aren't motivated by that, but narcissists are. Toxic people are. So you don't want to engage in it for that reason, but they also use your reaction against you. They go, look, there's the crazy one. There's the emotional one, while they stand over there calm and collected. And so there you are, and you go, wait a minute, you're the one who was like that. I was only reacting to you. You were the one who was like that in the first place. You were the one who started this thing. And they go, oh no, we're in this. And you're like, no, I was only being this way because you were this way. And then you're in it. Then you're there. No, you cannot take that bait. You can't go down that path. I know you want to, but you don't have to do that. Don't take that bait. And, that's how you become ready to slay. And if you are so ready to slay, I want you to put that in the comments right now. Ready to slay. Ready to slay. Put that in the comments right now, because that's how you handle toxic people. Ready to slay right now. And that's, what I talk about with slay. Strategy, leverage, anticipate what they're going to do, be 2 steps ahead of them, and focus on you, your position, your case. Anticipate what they're going to do and be 2 steps ahead of them. Anticipate that they're going to try to give you bait, and don't take it. So that's number 3 way to handle a toxic person. Number 4, you got to have an agenda or a plan. That's one of the ways that you're going to handle a toxic person. You got to have an agenda or a plan. And one of the ways that you can do that is, when you're going to have to go and talk to them, that they're going to want to bait you. You know that you're going to get emotional. You know that it's going to be hard for you. You know that your heart's going to start pounding. You know that it's going to take your breath away. You know that it's triggering for you. Have an agenda or a plan when you go to speak to them, and maybe even a time limit. That way, when it goes beyond the scope of what you're going to be talking about, or it reaches that time limit, you can just say, hey, oh no, we're sticking to this topic. Or if it reaches the time limit, you can just say, hey, I've got another engagement. I got to go. We're happy to pick this up another time. All right. I'm looking forward to talking to you the next time. Fine. But you're in and out, and it allows you to start feeling like you are taking control of the situation. Okay. So that's the next one. Have an agenda or a plan. And if you are getting ready to negotiate with a toxic person, you're getting ready to negotiate with anybody, even if it's not a toxic person, make sure to grab my free Crush My Negotiation prep worksheet, crushmydeal.com. Go to crushmydeal.com, get it. It's a free ebook, 15 pages. Crushmydeal.com. Go grab it right now. You must have this. I've had people win their entire deals on this thing. So grab it. It's totally free. Crushmydeal.com. Get it right now. The number 5 way to handle a toxic person is what I call fluff or favor, vomit later. You're going to fluff up their ego, like you're fluffing up a pillow. You give them a little something that they want so that you get a little something that you want in return. Fluff up their ego, give them a little something that they want so you get a little something that you want in return. And how that looks is, can you handle resolving the QuickBooks this month? You are so good at it. You're so smart. It'll be done so much more efficiently if you do it than if I do it. I am terrible at it. Don't say anything good about yourself because they don't want to hear that. So you get something done that you want done. And I say fluff or favor, vomit later, because, if you need to feel like you need to go vomit later, go do that. But then you got something done that you wanted done, and they got what they wanted, which is their ego got fluffed up. So fluff or favor, vomit later. That's number 5 way to handle a toxic person. I am so excited about this topic because this is powerful. This is fire. How to be tactical with the narcissist and empower you with strategies to take control and navigate these difficult situations and these challenging interactions with confidence and clarity instead of them putting you on the defensive all the time. It's time for you to be on the offensive. You have the power to reclaim. You have the power to reclaim your life and your peace of mind. It's all about having the right tactics and having the right mindset. So let's get started. So first of all, you need to understand narcissist tactics. It's crucial to understand the narcissist tactics. Narcissists often use manipulation, gaslighting, and other psychological tricks to control and undermine you. So by recognizing these tactics, you can start to dismantle their power over you. They're really the easiest people to understand in the world. They're difficult, but they're easy. So once you understand them, then it's like super easy to gain control over them. They're actually way more afraid of you than you are of them. So the common tactic is gaslighting. This is the narcissist trying to make you doubt your reality. If they deny something, all you have to do is keep a record of your interaction. So this can be in the form of notes, emails, text. So I have a really special link for you. Go to docthenarc.com, and having evidence of what you do, of everything they do, is really helpful. So I always say this reframe. So every time they do something that's like super annoying or triggering, you just say, oh, thank you for the gift. Thank you for the gift. So you just write it down, write it down, write it down. Then you can just stay grounded in reality and not fall into their trap. So another tactic is blame shifting, where they deflect everything. I would say projection and deflection, lying and denying, right? And they try to deflect their faults onto you. And so if they try to blame you for their mistakes,
You can use statements like, I understand that you're upset. And you can use things like, we can find a solution. Use like we statements often really help instead of you this, you that, you this, you that. Use we statements, because if you say that, that really can be helpful. Another really great tool is my phrases for disarming narcissists. It's totally free. Go to disarmthenarc.com, and that'll help them get back to the issue at hand. Stay to the facts. I always say just the facts. Next thing is setting boundaries. Set clear, firm boundaries is really, really so important when you're dealing with a narcissist. It means being very specific about what behaviors you're going to tolerate and what behaviors you're not going to tolerate. If they're constantly interrupting you, just say, I need you to let me finish before I can respond. And if they keep interrupting, just say, okay, you might say, this approach is not working for me. And just say, we can continue this conversation at another time, and just stay calm. Don't allow them to trigger you. Because as soon as they trigger you, then you're going to be in it. They go fishing, and then they reel you in, and then you're down in that mud. You're down in that mud with them. Don't allow that to happen. You just need to not allow that to happen. So it's just like SOS. So stop, take a breath, observe their behavior. Like as if you're observing a 2-year-old having a tantrum on the floor. I would say put an invisible shield down around you and then state what you're going to say. SOS. All right. Stop, observe, state. The next thing is the gray rock technique. The gray rock technique. You just become like a gray rock. You're just uninteresting, unresponsive. You're just short, very short, responsive. So when they try to trigger you, you might just say things like, oh, that's interesting. As very little as possible, or thanks for the feedback. Very neutral things to say. One of the things I like to say is, I agree with you. I agree with you that that's your opinion. I agree with you that we're not going to get to a resolution to here. Another one is employing tactical empathy. It means understanding the narcissist perspective and knowledge, and it doesn't mean you're agreeing with them, but you're just they crave admiration. Talk about how you can move forward with this plan. So you can oh, okay, so you're just so great at this, oh, maybe you should be the one to take the lead on this because you're so good at this. You have the skills and nobody else does. I call it fluff for favor, vomit later. If they want to dominate conversation, you can also redirect their need for control, saying, you have a really unique perspective on this. Maybe you can help us brainstorm a solution. Another thing is you sort of seed how something can come to a resolution. Sort of let them sort of take the lead on things sometimes. Another one is just how to stay calm and centered. Always stay calm and centered. I would say scream in your pillow, cry in the shower, but you've got to stay calm and centered when you are with them. Never let them see you sweat. You come in, you use that strong body language, you use your power body language before you go in. You've got to be super focused when you walk in, super composed, very strong, and take deep breaths, because if they see that you are rattled in any way, then they'll know. You can get curious instead of angry, oh, that's interesting. Oh, what makes you think that? Oh, that's interesting. And so get curious instead of angry, right? Or, oh, thank you for the feedback. Thanks for the feedback. Just arm their attempts to upset you.
Summer's right around the corner and I'm already planning my next getaway. I love using points for travel and I'm always looking for ways to earn more. Here's a life hack I wish I'd known sooner. When you pay your rent through Bilt, you earn flexible, transferable points and unlock exclusive benefits along the way. Let me explain. There's no cost to join, and when you pay your rent through Bilt, you unlock flexible points that can be transferred to your favorite hotels and airlines, and a future rent payment, your next Lyft ride, and more. When you pay your rent through Bilt, you unlock 2 powerful benefits. First, you earn one of the industry's most valuable points on rent every month, no matter where you live or who your landlord is. Your rent now works for you. Second, you gain access to exclusive neighborhood benefits in your city. Bilt's neighborhood benefits are things like extra points on dining out, complimentary post-workout shakes, free mats or towels, at your favorite fitness studios and unique benefits or experiences that only Built members can access. And when you're ready to travel, Built points can be converted to your favorite miles and hotel points around the world, meaning that your rent can literally take you places. So if you're not earning points on Built rent, my question is, what are you waiting for? Start paying your rent through Built and take advantage of your neighborhood benefits by going to joinbuilt.com/negotiate. That's JOINBILT.com/negotiate. Make sure to use our URL so they know that we sent you. That's joinbuilt/negotiate to sign up to joinbuilt.com/negotiate today.
I'm going to just tell you, you've got to put this invisible boundary, this invisible Teflon down around you, where you're just basically, you got to put water off your back, because they're bad juju off your back, because they're going to be sending it to you, and you've got to be like Superman with the bullets off of you, or Wonder Woman with the gold bracelets where that bad juju is coming off of you, because they're going to send it no matter what. Imagine you're sitting in that team meeting and there's that one colleague who just always finds that one thing to nitpick about, that one thing, your ideas. How do you handle that? Instead of, feeling like, you know what? I'm so sick of this person. Like every single time I've got the idea, they've got to shoot it down. They've got something to say, or maybe they're trying to line up other team members against you, or you just know that they're talking about you behind your back, or something is going on. You just feel it, right? Sometimes you just kind of feel it in your gut. And maybe they actually even used to be your friend, but now they're starting to look at you as somebody who's competition, somebody who's competing for that one same job that you're competing for, right? How do you deal with that? Well, maybe you can redirect the conversation back to that main point. Maybe you can just stand in your zone. Stand in your zone. Just go, that's not what we're talking about today. Today is, what is on the agenda today is this. Whatever you say it with authority, say it with confidence, stand in your power. That is what is important. The person who actually speaks with the most authority, the most confidence, is the person who gets the most attention, is the person who gets the most done. This is not only showcasing your confidence, but it also keeps the conversation on track. Example number 2 is you're in a family gathering. And by the way, you cannot control what other people are going to do. What you can control is your response to it. So just, observe, don't absorb, right? Observe, don't absorb. So consider it like when you're in a family gathering and that one relative just never misses that chance to belittle you. And instead of internalizing their negativity or retaliating, just employ neutral statements. You can just say things like, that's an interesting perspective. Or you can even say things like, that's really great feedback. Thank you. Just remember that by not giving them a reaction, like the reaction that they're seeking, you're reclaiming your power. You can even observe their behavior to them. Something like, I can see that you're angry. I can see that you're upset. You're actually starting to just see them almost as if they're a toddler having a tantrum on the floor. Basically, just not even part of it. That's their hurricane that's happening. It's their vortex of craziness that's happening. It doesn't have anything to do with you. Remember that other people's triggers don't have anything to do with you. It doesn't have anything to do with what's happening with you. If you're new here and you haven't subscribed to this channel, make sure you do that now, because in this community, we're here to support each other, and you're going to need extra support when you're dealing with difficult people like this. So if you haven't subscribed, make sure you do that now. Subscribe, hit that notification bell. And if you haven't gotten my free phrases for disarming narcissists, that'll help you navigate these tricky waters. You can get those at disarmthenarc.com. So make sure you get those too. So let's talk about friendships. So we've talked about the office people, or the people that you might be working with. And that applies, by the way, if you're dealing with them as clients. I've had to deal with them as clients, or even your boss or whatever. And we've talked about them if you're dealing with them as a family member. Now, how do you deal with your friends, right? So this can be really hard. It can be a betrayal a lot of times when you think that a person is your friend. And I've been right there. Where, you think this person who you've told everything to, you think that person is always going to have your back. And they even say, anything for you. I'm here for you. I've got your back. Anything can shift. Things can shift in the wind. Because especially when one friend ends up, becoming, having more, doing more, or things shift where maybe one gets a boyfriend and the other one doesn't have that. One loses a lot of weight, the other one doesn't, where things will shift so that the friendship no longer has something that held it together in the same way. When that shifts the power, or shifts the way that the friendship once was, then it can really change what the dynamics are in that particular friendship. Or sometimes people cross boundaries in friendships. Maybe it was a friendship that was based on people being platonic, and somebody crossed a sexual boundary when they shouldn't have, or something like that. Or maybe it was money. Somebody borrowed money from each other, and so somebody crosses boundaries when they shouldn't have. Whatever it is, when feelings start to get hurt and things start to shift, you have to be the one who politely but firmly knows your limits and is okay with saying, hey, I love you, I respect you, and I respect you so much that I'm going to let you know that this is not something that works for me. This approach does not work for me. This is beyond the bounds of the limitations of my friendship. And I want to continue our friendship, but not in the way that you're looking to redefine it. You can just straight up say it. And if it doesn't work for that other person, then, you're going to have to be okay with that. And they're going to have to be okay with that. Because if you don't, then what happens is you start to build resentment. And then that no longer works for you either. And eventually it all ends up coming out. You think that you are keeping the peace, but keeping the peace never ends up being peaceful. Let me just say that again. Keeping the peace never ends up being peaceful. It ends up coming out on the tail end somewhere, and that tail end, when that whips around, is so much worse than when if you just are straight up about it and in integrity in the first place. So just straight up say, if they're coming over all the time, I really need my alone time. I would prefer to spend time with you at other times when it works for me. I love you, but let's find a time that works for me. Just be straight up about it. It really is so much better in the long run than if you just don't communicate about it. It really is. It can work wonders. If you try any conversation that is delayed because you think that anything is going to go away, and this goes for narcissists too, by the way. When you think, oh, it's going to get better, I'm not going to have this conversation right now, it never gets better. It just doesn't. And if you agree with me, put an agree in the chat. Put an agree in the chat. And I would love to see what you think in the comments as well. All right. So remember, it's not just about avoiding confrontations, but navigating them with grace and your self-assuredness and your understanding of who you are and standing in your power.
How do you have a conversation with a narcissist? Obviously, you don't say the word no to a narcissist. How do you manipulate the conversation to be able to get a narcissist to do something that you want them to do?
So there's two things here for me. If I go back into where we mentioned at the very beginning about billionaires, and a lot of the guys who sit at the very top of the big private equity firms are billionaires, right? You wouldn't know their names. They're not written down anywhere, but they are. And there is a view here I have that sometimes to get to the very top of anything, maybe you have to have some of the traits of narcissism. You see it in the world of sport, they call it the GOATs, the greatest of all time, right?
Yeah.
I've seen that in business.
Yeah.
But to your question specifically, I think there's a couple of things that I learned, and I'm a big believer that your environment shapes everything. We joked about Adelaide. If I'd stayed there, maybe I would have.
Serial killer or a priest?
But who knows, a priest or a shark diver or something.
Or a shark.
But I found two different patterns that work, and I'll contextualize this by saying you have to be very, very good at influence and persuasion. You have to be very, very good at reading situations, and you have to sort of have this almost like you build up a sense of this. It's almost like it's something that becomes a skill. And the reason I say that is there are some narcissists that I have absolutely said no to and been successful. Right? I've done that for sure. And there are others where there's no way that if I'd taken that approach, I would have been able to be successful. And the challenge is, how do you pick? How do you know? Right? And the thing that goes into my mind a little bit is, if you've ever done any martial arts or boxing or anything like that, there's a point in time where you have the ability to put the right punch in or not. Okay. And other times it's about playing defense versus offense. Okay. But the whole thing's a game. The whole thing's a game. And what I found to work sometimes, if someone was, maybe they'd stumbled a little bit, they'd shown a little bit of vulnerability, sometimes you can attack that. Okay. And if you understand that vulnerability, you can go quite deep into the wound if you're that way inclined. And people buckle. They may not buckle in the moment, but they leave the room, right? And things like that, because they don't know what to do. And that's where the bullying piece, I think, works quite interestingly. So, if you feel that you're getting in a situation where you have the angle to put the punch in, I've been successful at doing that, and that's actually got me through many a negotiation as well. Other times,
that's great advice. That is great advice.
It's interesting. I mean, it's such a, I look back in the world now, I've got literally the hairs on my arms are standing up as I'm telling this, because I can feel being in these places again. There are times where the opponent is, maybe too strong for you. maybe at that point as well. Like sometimes I'm a big believer in energy right now. I understand it now. Back then I didn't.
Yeah.
Sometimes, you know, there's a certain amount of energy that can be overwhelming if you walk into a situation with a huge amount of confidence. But when I've had people who, you know, that they have to win and they have to feel like they're winning all the time. There's a classic martial art called Aikido. And the whole concept of Aikido is to use someone's power and strength and force against them. So if you ever Google it, you'll see this little guy, tiny little guy, old guy, battling these muscle-bound people and just flipping them all over the place, because the harder the force into them, the more he has the tools and the skills to be able to reverse that force back.
Mm.
And so what I've found is with certain narcissists, you have to make it look like they win.
Yes.
Quite a lot, actually. It might be over weeks, months, right? Maybe longer. But what you're really doing is you're just bringing the force towards you until the point in time where you can reverse the force.
Oh,
And you
so
know how
hard.
that looks, right? Is, and this is, I hate saying this, but I'm going to say it. You belay your own values. You get inside, you become a trusted ally, right? You become the person they start to trust until you can then turn that back against them.
Yeah. I call
See
it
what I mean?
ethically manipulating the manipulator.
Yeah, but you have to, and this is the thing, the reason I hate this, and I do hate this, is you have to sometimes compromise your own ethics for a period of time. And sometimes that time, as I said, could be a longer period of time, right? To be able to influence that person. And I think from doing this type of activity for a decade, as I've just explained it, I think that's what started to get me to that breakdown experience. So I was winning on the outside in, as I said, I was winning these things. But as I was starting to conflict with values, ethics, my own morality, whatever, that was starting to chip away at me.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I get it. I mean, but you know, there are times when I'm talking to people and they'll say, oh, you know, my soon to be ex wants to get back together, but I don't want to get back together. But I'll say, go along with the conversation for now until, you know, because let them think that you're going to, you know, I mean, there's times that is something you have to do. I mean, or even if it's a business partner or whatever, and they think that there's still a chance that whatever, you have to kind of lead them along for a while. There are times that you do have to kind of have that conversation for a while. I mean, I call it ethically manipulating the manipulator, because they are manipulators and they're opportunists, and you have to do what you have to do to survive.
It is that. It just depends, I think, on the actions. So I'll give you an example of that. I mentioned before that I'd go into businesses and fire people, effectively restructure.
Mm-hmm.
I remember a couple of decisions I made through that journey where I sacked my friends.
Mm.
My
That
good
must have
friends.
been hard, very hard.
Yeah. And not for the
But
reasons
they
that they
weren't
weren't
friends
performing.
after that, I'm assuming.
Some of them are, because I've had the opportunity to explain the situation. I think in that world, you have to appreciate that you are playing a game. You are acting out to some extent a different caricature. So not always, but if you think about it, like if you've got a narcissist who says, I just want you to get rid of that person, and you go, well, why? Because they're doing a great job. Their numbers are off the charts. I just don't like them. So do it. So in that situation, what do? Right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you go back to the bully? No, I'm out. Right? I'm gone. Right? Because you know that's probably the next conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Or do you say yes to it, knowing it's the wrong thing to do for lots of reasons, and even the reason that's been given is a crap reason?
I'm going to tell you in this video that there's one question that you can ask them that sets up their collapse. All right. So before we dive in, I want to hear from you in the comments below. Tell me about a time that you felt like you had the upper hand in a negotiation or a communication with the narcissist. All right. Because your stories, they inspire others, they empower others. So don't hesitate to share. All right. Because it does help. And when you're dealing with a narcissist, it's important to understand their mindset. They thrive on power. They thrive on attention. They thrive on control. And taking that into account, the one question that sets up a narcissist collapse is this: how does that benefit you? How does that benefit you? Now, let me explain. All right. Now, many of you know me from my best-selling book, Slay the Bully, How to Negotiate with a Narcissist and Win. And if you read that book, you know that knowledge is power. You know that it's important to feel strong. You know that a narcissist is way more afraid of you inherently than you are of them. And trust me, by the end of this video, you're going to be armed with this powerful tool. You're going to be armed with feeling like you are so powerful, whether it's in a conversation, whether it's in negotiations. And if you haven't subscribed already, make sure you do that now. Subscribe, hit that notification bell, because you want to feel empowered. You want to feel strong. You want to know how to navigate these challenging circumstances when you're dealing with narcissists, whether it's your family, whether it's a professional situation. And I dealt with it in my law practice. I deal with it now when I'm helping people around the world. And it is so game-changing when you kind of turn the tables on narcissists and they're kind of exposed. When you say, how does that benefit you? How does that benefit you? Because they get sort of defensive when you ask them this question, right? So imagine you're in a situation where that narcissist is making these outrageous demands. And by asking, how does that benefit you? You're essentially asking them to reveal their motives, right? I mean, they may be taken aback. They might stumble. They get defensive. And in that moment, you've shifted this balance of power. So consider a scenario where a narcissist is attempting to gaslight you or manipulating you. When you say, how does this benefit you? It immediately shines a light on their tactics, causing them to backtrack. So, for example, in a professional negotiation, when they push for an unreasonable term or a condition, simply pose the question, how does that benefit you? Not only does it force them to think, I'm going to have to explain my demands here. It also positions you as someone who is thinking critically about the negotiations and the situation. So have you ever used this before? Or can you ever think can you think of a situation where this would help you, or where this would be a game changer for you? Drop it in the comments below. I'd love to know. I want to see this community here come together. I want to see you guys come together. I want to see you guys sharing insights. I want to see you guys sharing strategies. I want to see you guys supporting each other. All right. And for those of you who need phrases, who want phrases for helping to write emails, to write text messages, for communications, I have phrases for disarming narcissists. And you can get those at disarmthenarc.com, and they will help you become so much more powerful and just crafting the right emails and text messages. Sometimes if you're in tricky situations and you're thinking, I just need the right thing to say, it will help you. So disarmthenarc.com. So, just if you're thinking about, hey, I'm in a situation where I just want to flip the tables on this. And I've actually done this. I've actually completely flipped the tables on somebody. I actually had a situation one time where somebody was coaching me, and I didn't really feel like I was getting the value out of the coaching after a few months. And I was paying this person monthly. And the person would meet with me, and then the person was supposed to be doing other things for me. And what I ended up doing, because I had signed a 1-year contract with this person to pay them monthly. And what I ended up doing to get out of the contract was I literally listed out all the things that this person had done for me in the couple of months. And then I listed out what I had paid the person for business coaching. And I met with them on Zoom. And during the Zoom call, I then presented to them, here is what I have paid you. And here are all of the things that you have done for me. So now let me flip this deal on you. I'm coming to you and saying to you, I'm pitching you. You are now going to hire me as a coach. This is the offer. Pay me what I've paid you. Here is what you're going to get out of the deal. Here's how it's going to benefit you. What do you say? Would you hire me? And the person was so taken aback. And the person started stammering and, oh, well, you don't know about the future value and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, yeah, don't give me that. Don't give me that. Because they knew that this was not going to work. How does this benefit you, right? The only thing that this person was getting is they were getting benefited. I wasn't getting benefited. So, how does this benefit you?